My dad told the entire town I was broke. He wanted to humiliate me in front of MYX. But the bank manager walked into the diner. He handed me a black card and thanked me for my deposit. Dad's friends started laughing at him. My dad walked into the only diner in Harlan, Kentucky on a Saturday morning and told everyone at the counter that I was broke. I know exactly what he said because 3 people texted me before I had even finished my coffee at my kitchen table. The town of Harlan has around 10,000 people and functions like a single organism. Information moves through it in minutes. Good news travels fast. Bad news travels faster. And news that someone's kid has failed travels fastest of all. He said I had moved back to Harlan because I had run out of money in Louisville. He said the landscaping business I had been building for 3 years was a disaster. He said I had borrowed money I could not pay back. He said my ex-girlfriend Kayla, who had been sitting 2 tables away having breakfast with her mother, deserved to hear it from someone who was honest about who I actually was. He said he was just being real with his friends. That is the word he used, real. He wanted Kayla to see me as the failure he had been calling me for years. He wanted to do it in public so the story would spread before I had a chance to explain anything. He wanted Harlan to know that his son had gone to Louisville and come back with nothing. Here is what my father did not know. He did not know about the commercial landscaping contracts I had signed in Louisville before I decided to relocate the business operations back to eastern Kentucky to serve a market that was completely underserved. He did not know about the private equity firm that had reached out 6 weeks earlier about a partnership investment in the company. He did not know about the business account at First Federal Bank that I had opened the previous Tuesday with a deposit that had made the branch manager personally call me to thank me and introduce himself. He did not know any of it, because I had stopped telling him things. He found out everything on a Saturday morning at a diner table when the branch manager of First Federal Bank walked through the door at 9:15 in the morning to pick up a to-go order, saw me sitting at the counter, and came over to say thank you. I want to tell you the whole story, how I got to that diner counter, what my father was like when I was growing up, what I built in Louisville and why I brought it home, and what the bank manager actually said when he handed me that card in front of a room full of people my father had just told I was broke. Like this right now, subscribe and hit the bell. Drop a comment telling me if you have ever had someone try to publicly humiliate you before they understood what you had actually built, and share this with someone who needs it. Let us go all the way back to Harlan. My name is Cole Briggs, and I am 31 years old. I grew up in Harlan, Kentucky, in the specific quiet of a small Appalachian town that the rest of the country tends to associate with poverty and decline, and the particular weight of an economy that was built around coal, and that has been adjusting to the reality of coal for 40 years. Harlan is complicated and real, and has a specific beauty in the mountains that people who have never been there do not understand, and that people who grew up there carry inside them even when they are somewhere else. My father's name is Frank Briggs. He is 59 years old. He has worked at the same hardware store in Harlan for 26 years, first as a floor employee, then as an assistant manager, then as the store manager for the past 11 years. He is good at his job in the specific way of someone who knows every product in the building and who the regular customers trust with their projects. He is respected in the town in the practical sense. People know his name and trust his advice on building materials. He is also a man with a very fixed idea of what success looks like and a very limited patience for versions of success that do not match his picture. His picture was this: a steady job with a salary in the town where you grew up, doing work that people in the community recognized and respected, benefits, a house you owned, a truck that ran, Friday nights at the same places with the same people. He had built exactly this, and he was proud of it, and the pride was real and legitimate. What he could not do was apply that pride to anyone who was building something different. My mother's name is Carol. She has worked as a bookkeeper for 2 small businesses in Harlan for the past 18 years. She is warm and careful and has spent decades in the specific position of someone who loves 2 people who are in conflict with each other and who tries to keep the peace by managing the distance between them. She is good at it. She is also exhausted by it. I understood this about her long before I was old enough to say it out loud. I was a quiet kid who liked being outside. Harlan is surrounded by mountains and creeks and the specific green of eastern Kentucky summers, and from the time I was old enough to be outside alone, I was building things in the yard. Paths, small structures, garden beds. I had an eye for what land could be made into that I did not understand was unusual until I was older. I was a decent but unremarkable student, not because I was not intelligent, because the specific way school was designed did not match the specific way I process things, which was spatially and practically rather than verbally and abstractly. I understood how things fit together. I could look at a piece of land and see what it wanted to be. I had a hard time sitting still for 6 hours reading textbooks. My father read this as a deficiency. He said things throughout my childhood that I have carried and argued with internally for years. He said, "You are not a book-smart person, Cole. You need to find something practical." He said, "People in this town work with their hands. There is no shame in that, but do not get ideas about something bigger than what is actually available to you." He said, "Your cousin Marcus went to college and came back here working the same shift he could have gotten out of high school. Do not waste money chasing something." He was not a cruel man. He was a limited man who loved me in the only language he had and who confused his limitations with facts about the world. I believed him for longer than I should have. After high school, I worked at a landscaping company in Harlan for 2 years, a local operation doing residential mowing and basic maintenance. The owner, a man named Terry Combs who I liked genuinely, ran a tight, small operation and was good at the work, but had no interest in growing beyond what he had. He was exactly what my father described: steady, local, known. I worked for Terry, and I watched him work, and I understood that what he had built was real and valuable, and also that there was a version of this business that was significantly larger and significantly more complex and significantly more profitable that nobody in eastern Kentucky was doing. I saved money for 18 months. On a Tuesday in March, I told my father I was moving to Louisville to start a landscaping business focused on commercial clients. He said, "Commercial landscaping in Louisville. You think you are going to walk into a market that has established companies doing that work for decades and just figure it out?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Cole, you are 25 years old and you have worked for Terry Combs for 2 years and you have never run a business in your life." I said, "I know. That is why I am going to Louisville instead of staying here. The market here is not big enough to learn on." He said, "You are going to lose everything you saved, and you are going to come home broke." I said, "Maybe, but I am going." I drove to Louisville with $11,000 in savings, a truck, a trailer, and 2 pieces of equipment I had bought from Terry at a fair price. I rented a room in a shared house in the Highlands neighborhood. I started making calls on Monday morning. The first year in Louisville was the year that tested everything my father had said about me and everything I believed about myself. I want to be honest about this because the honest version is not the triumphant version, and the honest version is more useful. The commercial landscaping market in Louisville was real and large and completely occupied by established companies with equipment fleets and employee bases and client relationships that had been built over decades. Walking into that market at 25 with a truck and a trailer and $11,000 was not, in the conventional sense, a competitive position. What I had instead of the conventional competitive position was 3 things. The first was that I was willing to bid on jobs that the established companies considered too small or too complicated or too geographically inconvenient. Commercial property managers have a constant supply of smaller properties that the big landscaping companies are not interested in because the margin does not justify their overhead. I was interested. My overhead was me and a truck, and I could be profitable on jobs that were too small for the companies with 30 employees and a fleet of vehicles. The second was that I was obsessive about quality on every job regardless of size. This sounds obvious, but it is genuinely rare. A lot of service businesses provide the quality that the client can verify they are providing. I provided the quality that I knew the property needed regardless of whether the client was going to notice the specific details. The clients started noticing that their properties looked different from the ones maintained by my competitors. They started asking why. I started getting referrals. The third was that I was willing to answer my phone at 7 in the morning and show up on the same day when something needed to be addressed. Response time in service businesses is the most undervalued competitive advantage that exists. I answered calls. I responded to texts within 30 minutes during working hours. I showed up when I said I would show up. These things sound basic, and they are basic, and most businesses still fail at them consistently. By the end of my first year, I had 24 commercial clients and monthly revenue of $16,000. I was paying myself $38,000 a year and putting the rest back into equipment. My father called me on Christmas Eve of that first year. He said, "How is Louisville?" I said, "Good, the business is growing." He said, "What does growing mean?" I said, 24 clients, monthly revenue of $16,000. He was quiet for a moment. He said, "Are you profitable?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, that is something." That is something. From my father, that was a significant statement. He would not say good job. He would not say I was wrong. He said that is something and moved on to asking about the truck. I held the phone after the call and thought about what I was going to build in year 2. Year 2 was when I hired my first employee. His name was Andre Williams. He was 23, from Louisville's West End, had done landscaping work since he was 16, and had a work ethic that I could see in the first 2 hours of working alongside him. I hired him at a salary that was above what he had been making for his previous employer, because I understood from the beginning that the quality of the people around you is the most important input in the quality of what you produce. Andre and I built the business together in year 2. By the end of that year, we had 51 commercial clients and a monthly revenue of $38,000. I hired 2 more employees. I bought a second trailer and 2 additional pieces of equipment. I also, in year 2, started dating Kayla. Kayla Porter was from Harlan originally. We had known each other growing up in the specific casual way of people from the same small town, where you know almost everyone's face and name, but may have never had a real conversation. She had moved to Louisville for nursing school at 23 and had been there for 3 years when I arrived. We ran into each other at a mutual friend's birthday gathering. We talked for 2 hours. I asked for her number. She gave it with the expression of someone who is genuinely interested, but being appropriately careful about it. We went on 3 dates before either of us relaxed enough to be fully ourselves. By the 3rd month, we were fully ourselves with each other. Kayla was direct and thoughtful, and had the specific quality of a person who asks real questions because she is genuinely curious rather than because she is performing interest. She cared about her patients at the hospital, where she worked in a way that went beyond the professional and into the personal. She also had a complicated relationship with her own family in Harlan that meant she understood, without needing it explained, what it meant to have parents who loved you and who had a narrow picture of what your life should look like. We were together for 14 months. The ending was not dramatic. It was 2 people who cared about each other genuinely discovering over time that the direction their lives were moving was different in ways that mattered. She wanted to stay in Louisville long-term. I was starting to think about the Eastern Kentucky market and what it would mean to bring the business model back home. We talked about it honestly, which is the thing I am most proud of about that relationship, that when it ended, we both understood why and neither of us was the villain. We ended things in January of my 3rd year in Louisville. I stayed in Louisville for another 8 months. And then I started making a different kind of plan. The plan to come back to Harlan was not a retreat. I want to be clear about this because my father interpreted it as a retreat, and the interpretation was wrong. Eastern Kentucky has a specific and genuine commercial landscaping need that is completely underserved. The region has hospitals, government facilities, university campuses, Commercial real estate developments that have come in with federal and state investment over the past several years as the region has worked to diversify its economy. These properties need maintenance and management at a level that the local operations in the area cannot provide because the local operations are sized for residential work. I had spent 3 years building the operational systems that could serve a commercial client at scale. I had the equipment, I had the team, I had the processes. The gap in Eastern Kentucky was the same gap that had existed in Louisville when I arrived in Louisville. Except in Eastern Kentucky, nobody had come in to fill it yet. I made a decision in September of my 3rd year in Louisville. I started identifying the commercial property managers in Eastern Kentucky who were currently either doing maintenance in-house or using residential operators at a service level that was costing them more than they realized. I made calls. I had conversations. I put together a pitch that was specific to the regional market and the specific clients I was targeting. Before I moved, I signed 3 letters of intent from commercial clients in the Harlan and Pineville area, totaling $96,000 annually. Then I signed the deal I had been negotiating for 6 weeks with a commercial property management firm in Lexington that owned 14 properties across Eastern Kentucky and had been dissatisfied with their current maintenance provider for 2 years. That single contract was worth $240,000 annually. Then I took a meeting with a private equity firm in Louisville called Tri-State Growth Partners that had been tracking the Appalachian Regional Services market for 18 months. They offered a minority investment in Briggs Landscape Services. The investment was $400,000 for a 20% equity stake. The implied valuation was $2 million. I was 29 years old. I sat in my apartment the evening after accepting the term sheet and called my mother. She said, "Cole, what is happening?" I said, "Mom, the business is doing really well. I am moving back to Harlan. I want to tell you something and I need you to hear all of it before you say anything to Dad." She said, "Okay." I told her everything. The Lexington property management contract, the letters of intent, the private equity investment, the move back. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You are moving home because you are successful." I said, "Yes." She said, "Your father thinks." I said, "I know what he thinks. That is why I am asking you to let me tell him myself when I am ready." She said, "Okay." I moved back to Harlan in October. I rented a house on the edge of town. I set up the operational base. I brought 2 of my Louisville employees with me, Andre included, who had been willing to relocate because I paid him fairly and because he had family in Eastern Kentucky and had been thinking about coming back himself. I opened the first federal bank business account on a Tuesday. The branch manager, a man named Robert Sloan, called me the following morning. He said, "Mr. Briggs, my name is Robert Sloan. I am the branch manager at First Federal. I wanted to personally reach out and thank you for choosing us for your business banking. We appreciate the relationship, and I would love to connect in person when you have time." I said, "I appreciate that. I will come by this week." I went to the bank on Thursday. Robert and I had a 30-minute conversation about the business and the Eastern Kentucky market and the plans I had. He was the kind of banker who was genuinely interested in the businesses he served, which is rarer than it should be. He said, "I want to make sure you have the tools you need. We have a premium business account package for clients at your deposit level that includes a dedicated business card. Let me have one issued for you." He issued the card before I left. Saturday morning, he walked into the Harlan family diner to pick up a to-go breakfast order. And my father was at the counter with 4 of his friends, and Kayla was at a table with her mother, and every person in the room had just heard my father say I was broke and back in Harlan with nothing. I need to tell you exactly how Saturday morning unfolded, because the sequence matters. I had gone to the diner at 8:45. This was normal for me. I went to the Harlan family diner on Saturday mornings because the coffee was good, and because I had always gone there on Saturday mornings when I lived in Harlan before Louisville, and the habit had reasserted itself immediately on moving back. My father was at the counter with his friends, which was also normal. Frank Briggs and his Saturday morning group had been occupying the same 4 stools at that counter for approximately 15 years. Dale Hubbard, who ran the auto parts store. Tommy Prater, who had retired from the county road department. Vic Combs, who was Terry's older brother and who had worked at the mine until it closed and who had been in partial retirement since. I came in, took a stool 2 seats down from my father's group, ordered coffee and eggs, and opened my phone to look at some contract paperwork I needed to review. My father acknowledged me when I sat down. A nod. The relationship between us since I had moved back had been careful. He knew I was operating a business out of the area. He did not know the specifics because I had not told him the specifics and he had not asked, which was the specific dynamic of a man who does not want to ask questions whose answers might require him to revise his position. Kayla walked in at 9, with her mother Linda at 9 o'clock. They took a booth by the window. I saw her when she came in. She saw me. We exchanged the specific nod of 2 people who ended things honestly, and who are both doing fine and who are capable of being in the same diner in a small town without it being an event. My father saw the exchange. He saw me look at Kayla, and something in him decided that this was the moment. I heard him start talking about me to his group, not quietly, with the specific volume of someone who wants to be heard beyond the immediate audience. He said, Cole moved back from Louisville. He said the business had some struggles. He said it was hard out there for a young guy who went without much experience and tried to take on more than he could handle. Dale Hubbard said, what happened with the business? My father said, ran into some financial trouble, had to come back and regroup. These things happen. Tommy Prater said, that is tough. My father said, you know how it is. Big city is not for everyone. Some people are better suited to what is here. There is no shame in that. He said this at a volume that reached Kayla's table. I knew it reached Kayla's table because I saw her mother Linda look over with an expression of discomfort. I felt something. I want to be honest about what I felt because the honest version is more useful than the version where I am completely calm and unbothered. I felt the specific heat that comes from being reduced in public by someone who should know better. The heat of having years of work described as failure in a room full of people who will repeat the description. But here is the thing about that heat. I had felt it before, many times. My father had been producing that heat in me since I was 12 years old with his comments about what I was capable of. I knew how to sit in it without letting it run me. So I sat with it, and I drank my coffee. And at 9:14, the door opened. Robert Sloan walked in wearing a Saturday morning jacket and carrying his car keys. He came in for a to-go order the way people in small towns come into the local diner for a to-go order, without particular ceremony. He saw me at the counter. He walked over. He said, Cole, good morning. I am glad I ran into you. He reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a card. He said, your business account card came in. I was going to call Monday, but since you are here, I wanted to drop it off personally. And I want to say again, we are genuinely glad to have Briggs Landscape Services with us. That was a significant opening deposit, and it tells us a lot about where this business is headed. He placed the card on the counter in front of me. He said, if there is anything you need from us as you build out the Eastern Kentucky operation, I am personally available. We want to be a real partner to you here. He extended his hand. I shook it. He picked up his to-go order from the counter, said good morning to the room generally, and walked out. The diner was quiet for a moment. I picked up the card. I put it in my wallet. I looked at my father. His 4 friends were looking at him. Dale Hubbard said, Frank, significant opening deposit. Tommy Prater said, Eastern Kentucky operation. That does not sound like someone who had to regroup. Vic Combs said nothing. He just looked at his coffee with the expression of a man who has just watched something happen that he is going to think about for a while. My father said nothing. He looked at his hands. Kayla's mother, Linda, said something to Kayla at their booth that I could not hear. Kayla looked at the counter. She caught my eye. She gave me the smallest, most specific look. The look of someone who grew up in Harlan and who understands the full weight of what just happened at that counter in the context of this town and this family. I gave her a small nod. I finished my eggs. I paid my check. I stood up to leave. My father said, "Cole." I turned. He said, "Come by the house later." I said, "Okay." I walked out into the Saturday morning. I went to my parents' house that afternoon at 3 o'clock. My mother was in the kitchen. She had made coffee and set out the specific cookies that she made when she was trying to create conditions for a difficult conversation to go well, which were peanut butter cookies from a recipe her mother had given her, and which I had been eating at kitchen table conversations since I was 7 years old. My father was in the living room. He had the television on, but he was not watching it. He had the specific posture of someone who has been sitting in the same position for a while waiting for something to happen. I sat on the couch. He turned off the television. He said, "Tell me about the business." I said, "What do you want to know?" He said, "Robert Sloan is not a man who says significant deposit as a courtesy. How much did you deposit?" I said, "Enough that he called me personally the day after." He said, "Cole, I am asking you directly." I said, "And I am asking you directly. Before I tell you the numbers, I want to know why you said what you said at the diner this morning." He looked at his hands. He said, "I thought." He stopped. He said, "Kayla was there, you moved back, I thought." He stopped again. I said, "You thought I had failed. You thought I had come back with nothing. You wanted her to know before I could manage the story." He did not say yes. He did not say no. I said, "Dad, why did you want that?" He said, "Because I was afraid." I said, "Afraid of what?" He said, "That if you had done well, it meant I was wrong about you, the whole time." That sentence landed in the room. I sat with it. My mother had come to the doorway of the living room. She was listening. My father looked at the floor. He said, "I told you that you were not a book-smart person. I told you people in this town worked with their hands and you should stay here. I told you going to Louisville was going to leave you broke." He said, "If none of that is true." I said, "Then what?" He said, "Then I was the one who almost kept you from something real." I said, "Yes, you were." He said, "But you went anyway." I said, "Yes." He said, "Tell me what you built." I told him all of it. The first year and the 24 clients and the $11,000 in savings that I had stretched into a business. The 3-year arc, Andre and the team, the Eastern Kentucky decision and why I had made it, the Lexington property management contract, the private equity investment and what it meant. He listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. My mother came fully into the room and sat in the chair near the window. My father said, $2 million valuation. I said, "Yes." He said, "At 29. I said, "Yes." He looked at me. He said, "I did not believe you could do this." I said, "I know." He said, "I was wrong." 3 words. From Frank Briggs, who had spent 30 years being right about practical things, and who did not say he was wrong easily or often. I said, "Yes, you were." He said, "I am sorry about this morning." I said, "Tell me specifically what you are sorry for." He said, "For saying what I said in front of people, for saying it in front of Kayla, for saying it before I knew the truth." I said, "And for saying it at all, for building a picture of me in this town as someone who was failing." He said, "And for that, yes." My mother said, "Frank." He looked at her. She said, "Say the rest." He looked at her for a moment. Then he looked at me. He said, "I am sorry for what I said to you when you were growing up, the things about what you were capable of, about staying here, about not having big ideas. I said, "Those things stayed with me for a long time." He said, "I know they did." I said, "I almost believed them." He said, "I know." He said, "I said them because I believed them, and I believed them because I was scared of watching you fail. The things I told you could not do were things I told myself I could not do. And it was easier to tell you the same things than to watch you try and fail." He said, "I was wrong about both." I sat in the living room of the house I grew up in, and I looked at my father. He was 59 years old, and he had worked at a hardware store for 26 years, and he had built a steady life and raised 2 kids, and he was sitting in a chair in his living room telling his son that he had been wrong. That is harder than most people think it is. I said, "Thank you for saying that." He said, "Are we okay?" I said, "We are working on it." He said, "Fair." My mother brought the peanut butter cookies into the living room. We sat there for another 2 hours talking about things that were not the business, and not the morning, and not the history. We talked about what the region was starting to look like with some of the new development coming in, and what my father thought about the hardware business, and what my mother was reading. We talked about things that families talk about when they are working on being honest with each other. The conversation at the diner spread through Harlan the way things spread in Harlan. By Monday, the version that was circulating was the accurate one. Robert Sloan had thanked Cole Briggs for his significant deposit. Cole Briggs was running a commercial landscaping company. The company had an investment from a private equity firm. Frank Briggs had said his son was broke and had been wrong. Frank's friends at the counter let him know what the town was saying in the specific way of friends who consider this their responsibility. He called me Monday evening. He said, "Dale told me what people are saying." I said, "What did you say back?" He said, "I said my son built something real and I should have known it sooner." He said, "I meant it." I said, "I know you did." Briggs Landscape Services now operates in 6 counties across eastern Kentucky. We have 22 employees, 41 commercial clients, and annual revenue that has crossed a number I would not have believed if someone had told me when I was driving to Louisville with $11,000 in savings and a truck and a trailer. Andre is the operations manager. He has been with me since year 2 in Louisville, and he runs the field teams with the same obsessive quality standards that we built the company on. He has an equity stake in the business. That matters to me. The private equity partnership has been what Tri-State Growth Partners promised it would be: access to capital and strategic relationships without pressure on how the business operates day to day. We are in the planning stages of expansion into 2 more counties. I had coffee with Kayla last month when she was back in Harlan visiting her mother. We sat at the same diner. We talked for 2 hours about our lives. She is doing well in Louisville. She is engaged to a good man who she describes with the specific warmth of someone who found exactly what she was looking for. I am genuinely happy for her. She said, "Your dad came and apologized to my mother." I said, "I know, he told me he was going to." She said, "He said he had been spreading false information about you, and he wanted to correct it." I said, "That sounds like him trying." She said, "It was good, it mattered." She was right, it mattered. My father and I talk differently now. The Saturday morning diner moment cracked something open between us that had needed to be cracked open for 20 years. The conversation in the living room that afternoon was the first honest one we had managed. We have been having them since. They are careful conversations, the kind where both people are still learning the new language, but they are honest. And honest is the only direction that produces something real between 2 people. He came to the office last week. I showed him the operation, the equipment, the crew vehicles, the commercial route maps on the wall, the client list. He walked through the whole space slowly. At the end, he stood in the middle of the main room. He said, "You built this." I said, "With help, but yes." He said, "From nothing." I said, "From $11,000 and a truck." He said, That was enough. I said, "It was, when you know what you are building." Here is what this story is really about. It is about two things at the same time, and both of them matter. The first is, the people who love you most can be the most wrong about you. They can see you completely and misread you completely simultaneously. The love is real, and the misread is real, and both things exist in the same person. The second is, you do not need them to be right about you before you start. My father told me I was not book smart. He told me I was not built for big ideas. He told me the city was going to break me and bring me home with nothing. I went anyway. I built anyway. I came home anyway, on my own terms, for my own reasons, building something real. The morning in the diner, when Robert Sloan walked through that door at 9:14 with my business card, was not a moment I planned or engineered. It happened because I had done the work. The work produced the moment. The moment told the truth. Do the work. Let the work tell the truth. Thank you for staying through this whole story. It genuinely means something that you are here. Drop a comment below and tell me if you have ever had someone underestimate you publicly and then watched reality correct them. I want to read every single one of those stories. Subscribe and hit the bell. We are here every week. Share this with someone who is building something that the people around them have already decided is going to fail. Tell them to keep building. The work tells the truth.